Hey, hey, hey. Time for another out of this world story from rSpace. Didn't see it coming. Find myself files for divorce and papers for a better life. Want to tell my story and say thanks. Been reading for months, and when I started, I truly thought we'd reconcile. Of course, I, 39 male, never saw it coming and truly thought we'd be the odd couple that makes it. Married almost 12 years, together for 14, known her for 20 plus. D-Day was 10:30. No smoking gun, just a gut feeling that made me look at her, 39 female, phone one night. I've never looked through her phone before that night. Like so many others, I wasn't wrong. That gut feeling rarely is. She'd gone to a high school reunion in August. I didn't go with, as it involved flights, and we have 2 kids and no local family to watch them. Ends up being a lot of money to see people I barely know and don't care about. I'm the breadwinner. She's been a stay-at-home mom for 10.5 years since our daughter was born. Looking back, there were plenty of red flags of terrible, abusive behavior. Not as bad as some I've read, but enough that I should have set hard boundaries and walked years ago. Anyway, it seems the relationship kicked off there. She swears nothing happened there and he's not a boyfriend from her past, but I don't believe a word she says anymore. She had a family member go into hospice in September, so I rearranged my work schedule to watch the kids so she could see them one more time. The family member ends up passing, so she extends her stay for a week to attend the funeral and mess around with her new boyfriend apparently. Lots of texting via Facebook Messenger after that, including how they're meant to be together and are so in love. Puke. Even attempts to meet up with him in Nashville to attend a game, which she actually asked me to go to, and I agreed. It's a high school friend. I trusted her then, didn't think anything of it. At the time, I was traveling every other week for work, and there were attempts to have him come visit. We live on the East Coast, he's in North Dakota, and she invited him to stay at our house, with our kids. He didn't seem comfortable with that, and they seemed to have had a falling out shortly before D-Day. She went kind of crazy pursuing him, and even after the falling out, it was clear she was still strongly in limerence with him. Anyway, my world was devastated. Couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't work. Desperately did the pick me dance for a week, maybe 2 weeks. Got some support from family, friends, and a coworker who's been through it too, and is 2 years into the curve. Learned to focus on me, something I never did in our relationship. Exercise and read. Still desperately wanted her, or maybe just my comfortable life back where I wasn't so hurt and betrayed. She didn't know what she wants, is lost. It's not about him. Loves me, but isn't in love with me. And all the other BS lines that we all hear about. Somewhere around the beginning of December, I was reading No More Mr. Nice Guy and committed to a firm boundary. The affair partner had to be no contact and out of our lives or I would end us. I'd told her in the beginning during the pick-me dance that I was terrified of losing her. Told her that day I wasn't scared to lose her, but just didn't want to, and that I wouldn't hesitate to end us if she didn't respect me. I still don't know if she didn't think I would follow through or truly wants to separate and is just too weak to pull the trigger herself. Ultimately, I suppose she wants her cake. The nice lifestyle I provide, but the fun of doing whatever she wants. Like so many others I've read about on here that have helped me learn how to handle the situation, she's selfish and feels entitled. Told her on 1/6 myself, on the advice of my attorney, your state may be different, follow their advice, and told her they would contact her to arrange to have her served. They've tried to contact, and she's avoided it since. She's always run from her problems and avoided them, hoping they'd just go away. To be fair, I've always accommodated that behavior. Sorry, sweetheart, you can't run from this one. I'll take a financial hit. That part sucks. And I'm very soured on marriage as a result. I've always viewed what I make as ours, and it was supposed to be. It's BS that she chose this path and is somehow still entitled to my retirement and home equity. But that is what it is. I try not to be too bitter and get hung up on that. I've been focused on skiing with my daughter, 10, and playing Nerf guns and plastic army men with my son, 5. I continue to exercise. I know there will be a battle coming up because I don't think she's accepted the reality of the situation. She can't fight me for the house and I can buy her out, so she'll have to leave. We're still cohabitating. The state will require her to find full-time employment. She has a 4-year degree, held teaching certificates in 3 states prior, and had a few years of teaching experience before she got pregnant with our daughter. She doesn't want to teach anymore, and told me not too long before D-Day, "I can't imagine having to work at a regular job." Eye roll. Sorry, sweetheart. You made the wrong choices if that was the case. I handle almost everything that you would consider adult real life for us. She's effectively a 12-year-old trapped in a 39-year-old body. Real life is coming at her like a freight train, and when it hits it, it won't be pretty. I get sad thinking about it, because I do still love her. You can't flip a switch and shut that off, though the feeling is ever so slowly starting to die. Indifference is the goal, and I can almost see it way out there in the future somewhere. I just have to continue to do the work to get there. Anyway, I know this has gotten long, but figured it was time to tell my story. It always helps to get it out, and each time I do, a small piece of the weight lifts. I'm lucky to have a strong family, friend, and coworker support structure around me, even though much of it is via phone spread around the country. In addition to just wanting to post this for myself, I hope it can inspire someone whose D-Day was yesterday, or maybe the same as mine but struggling, or maybe 2 years ago, tried to reconcile and is having questions. I'm not saying reconcile isn't possible, or the right path. The other partner needs to be invested in it. And thinking of you, the betrayed spouse, not themselves. My soon-to-be ex-wife is only focused on one thing, herself. In the clarity of the moment, looking at our lives, she always has been. Time for me to do better. For anyone still reading and dealing and hoping to find the path forward, here's what worked for me. This sub. I can't tell you how many hours I've spent reading stories and comments. While the comments guide you mostly to leave your cheater, they're not wrong. They're hard truth that takes some time to accept. You can't control another's behavior, and this happens to good people all the time. Thanks to all who posted in here. The support is amazing, even if you never post a word yourself. r/divorce men is also a good one if you're male, in my situation, and not looking to reconcile, and have questions. Lots of support there too. 3 books. No More Mr. Nice Guy, Leave a Cheater, Gain a Life, and The Storms Can't Hurt the Sky. Exercise. I'm not obese, but I wasn't in my best shape going into D-Day. I'm down about 15 pounds, and after 2 to 3 weeks, I was able to eat again, so it's not just from starvation. Once you feel better about your body, you'll feel better about dressing well too. Look good, feel good, has been my line to myself. Do things for you, no matter how small. Eventually, you'll work your way up to big ones. My soon-to-be ex-wife invited me to go with her and the kids to something the other day. She continues to keep her head in the sand and act like this is all normal, and if she ignores it, it'll all go away. Additionally, I think she just wanted help with the kids, so it wasn't so hard on her. I declined. In the past, I'd have felt I had to go, even if I didn't want to. Sat at home, listened to some music I like, and had a beer. It was wonderful, and hopefully a taste of my future life without such a selfish, miserable person hurting me. You can do this. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. Push past your fear. Make your life what you want it to be, not what someone who doesn't care about you wants it to be. A doormat meal ticket for them. Alright, time for some community reactions. Scary Inspector 8315 says, I assure you, you are no chump. You, good sir, joined the legend camp. You are one of these inspirational guys here, and I hope you keep us updated on your journey. The OP replies, Thank you for your kind words. I'll wait a bit to consider myself in the legend camp. I still have a long road ahead. Right now, I maybe consider myself an enlightened, healing chump. And a chump only in the fact that my ability to assume the best of people, especially the woman I chose to marry, and my blind trust for her, got me in this mess to begin with. That, and my inability to set and enforce boundaries. If I had, I probably wouldn't have married her, as the red flags of selfishness, immaturity, and lack of empathy were all there. Wouldn't have the kids I have, though, so there's always a silver lining. A. Ethan V. chimes in next. Thank you for sharing. I'm sorry you're part of this crappy club. It's true, though, that this post will help someone else just joining the club. I'm not a newbie, but it still helps me. The recommendations are spot on, and you have articulated the experience so well. Wishing you lots of health and happiness for your future. Our next comment comes from Lone Wolf 369963. Sorry that you are going through this. This is something no one is prepared for, and the end result completely depends on how one handles the situation. You're not a chump, but a champ on how you handle it. You try to get her back, but she's still in a fair fog. You realize that soon and start taking steps to move on. Your soon-to-be ex-wife is still playing to delay the divorce until she comes up with something else. Keep moving ahead, and soon this mess will be far behind you, and you'll meet someone that will truly love and cherish you. Take care of yourself and your kids. Good luck. Next comment from Battle Scarred 2021. You're not a chump, mate. You'd be a chump if you stayed and tolerated the disrespect. You're a good man. I wish you the best. The OP replies, Thanks for the kind words. I guess I consider myself a chump only the fact that I always assumed the best of my wife and trusted. Plenty of red flags in her behavior that weren't cheating, but pointed to an entitled, selfish, abusive brat. A child in an adult body, really, and I always allowed it, but no more. Another comment from The Fixer 123456. OP, sorry you are going through this ordeal. I have no additional advice as you are doing everything right. Just hope that they can get creative and serve her the papers, as a traditional route doesn't seem to be working. Also, be prepared for her begging when the reality of working and a lifestyle adjustment hits her. I assume that you have limited her access to credit and cash. It is going to get worse before it gets better, but you got this. Sending strength. The OP has one reply before we move on. Thanks for the kind words. As it's all my money, I was advised to not cut anything off. I'm going to work with my attorney on a plan to get her out of my house and cut off her access to funds, but I need to make sure I'm not hanging myself legally in the process. On to the next story. Husband cheated while I was pregnant. The details. Just here looking for some solidarity with others who have been the victims of infidelity. I'm 31 female, and my soon-to-be ex-husband, 31 male, had an emotional affair with someone much younger, 18 female, now 19, when I was pregnant. First, he said it was just a super intense connection, friendship, and why should he stop talking to her? I had panic attacks at 6 months pregnant, but he refused to stop talking to her. He even snuck out to see her one night because she was crying hysterically and freaking out about losing him. I was terrified of being alone and raising our son as a single parent, so I didn't push the issue, even though he knew I was a mess and I was losing weight and unable to sleep or go more than a few hours without crying. Then he told me that he's always wanted an open marriage, to have sex with other people, because I was the only person he had ever slept with. And he was such a physical, sexual person, and it didn't make sense that he had only ever had sex with me. We've been together for 11 years, married for 2, and he never mentioned anything like that ever, and also never told me I was the only person he had been with. I told him that didn't matter to me, but he was so ashamed. Granted, I never said no to anything he wanted to try, and we had an amazing sex life. He said that he wanted to be physical with this girl. He couldn't get it out of his head and needed to do it before her son was born. And also, that's how he wanted our relationship to be going forward. He promised he loved me and would always make me his priority, that he wouldn't fall in love with anyone else, that it was just sex. I begged him for it not to be with her, but he said that I didn't have a choice. He was going to do it regardless, and that he wouldn't be the one to end things, but if I said I wanted out, he wouldn't stand in my way. So I acquiesced. He didn't sleep with her then, but did everything but sex. I was 8 months pregnant at that point. I even considered, moving forward, letting him continue to have an open marriage. We talked about ground rules and everything. I said that once a year on his birthday, I'd let him hire a really classy escort. If it was all about sex, that should be fine, no? Realizing now how little self-respect I had for myself and how wrapped up I was in being with him, how I'd do anything to keep him, but he wouldn't do anything for me. Once our son was born in July, I could feel him pulling away and confronted him again and asked him if he was in love with her, and he said yes. He was so cold and distant to me at home, we barely spoke. But he would parade me out with friends and act like everything was fine when it wasn't, and I was dying inside. I cried every single day. He broke down too and said he was so sorry and he didn't understand how this happened. But he was in love with both of us and couldn't make a decision about what he wanted. And I'm thinking, what the F? She's a child and we have a whole beautiful life together and you're willing to throw it away. It was like I meant nothing to him, like I wasn't good enough. I have never been so broken and completely traumatized. In October, we took a few weeks apart so he could figure himself out and so I could find some peace. I moved into my parents' house with our 9-week-old son and did everything. Less than a week after I left, my husband slept with her. I found out after the fact. The day after he slept with her, he and I FaceTimed so I could virtually tour a daycare facility close to our home, and he acted like everything was totally normal. I actually felt really positive after the call because it seemed like he missed me and had rethought things. When I got back home with the baby, he barely acknowledged that he missed me. I had to ask him. It was super awkward, and that night we were intimate with each other, but I completely broke down because nothing had actually been addressed. I still don't know who he wanted to be with or if we were going to split up. I felt so dirty and used. Only later did I find out he slept with the girl when I was gone, and then I just felt so disgusting and manipulated. A few days later, we talked about everything. This is when I found out he slept with her and made the mutual decision to divorce. Then he had a complete breakdown, saying it didn't feel right, that he didn't want to lose everything we had. So I agreed to give him one more chance. We said we'd separate for the rest of the year and then see how we felt. So I moved to my parents' little cottage in New Hampshire and have been there since. 3 days into our new separation, and I knew it wasn't going to work. We had a couples counseling session and he was still very cold and said he didn't know if he wanted to save our marriage. Then he went 6 weeks without even checking in on our son. Mid-December, we FaceTimed again, and I told him I was done, and he agreed. Said he still didn't know what he wanted, but that he would advocate for himself and wanted to be in our son's life. I said, "You have shown no interest. What the F?" And he said he was trying to respect my privacy and that it was so hard to reach out and talk to me when I was feeling so bad about everything. I told him to inquire about our son whenever he wanted to, and to let me tell him when I was uncomfortable or when it was too much for me. So now, we lived together in New York, and it's insanely expensive to hire lawyers. So we're going to use a mediator for the divorce. What I really want is to hire the most intense lawyer possible and to have a judge take everything away from him. I just don't have the money. I'm trying to get my life back on track. Ultimately, I will be moving to the greater Boston area where my parents live, so I can be close to them for support and 3 hours away from my husband. I've been applying to jobs and looking for a place to live and daycare for my son. So I need money and can't spend it all on a lawyer. But I never want to see my husband again. I hate that he wants a relationship with our son, and honestly, feel like he's doing it just for the optics. He's dragging his feet and choosing a mediator, and I just want this to be over. Being a single mom is so hard. I'm exhausted and broken and just want to give up sometimes, but I know I need to keep it together for my son and work hard to make a good life for us. I've been in therapy since the beginning of this fiasco, but I'm really struggling with the feelings of embarrassment, heartbreak, anger, worthlessness, etc. I've been keeping it together when my son is awake, but as soon as he's down for the night, my thoughts start spiraling and I can barely sleep. For those of you who read this far, thank you. Not really sure what I'm looking for besides some solidarity or advice from anyone willing to give it. It's so hard to stay positive when I have such a long way to go and I'm so deep in my feelings. I'm just completely terrified of being alone for the rest of my life and not finding another partner who loves me and my son. And afraid that I'll never love someone as much as I loved my ex. I just want to be okay. Our first reaction comes from Nero Aldrin 20. Keep pushing. Don't let him slow you down. Just remember eventually he will try to introduce the girl to your child, so make rules for your child. DOP replies, "Yes, this is one of my worst nightmares. She does not deserve a relationship with my child. She's half the reason he doesn't have his dad in his life. I have no idea how to go about setting those rules or how to be okay with it. My son is so little, only 5.5 months. So if my ex stays with this girl, my son will grow up with her and have a good relationship with her, which kills me." Next thought from Political and Sensitive. Get solid proof that he cheated and divorce him. Put him on child support, and I mean take him to the cleaners. Get yourself a therapist and a solid support system. A girl that age will not stick around to waste her youth on a man that age. She's 19 years old, so her world just got bigger, and he isn't the only man in the world, especially if she is in college or going to school. I give it 2 years max. You will come out on top. DOP replies, I have an email he wrote me saying he wants an open marriage, but only his spoken word that he slept with her. I have a therapist, and my family has been such a great support system, thankfully. And yes, she's in her freshman year of college. I literally cannot believe she's wasting her time with him. College is about having fun and exploring, and she's breaking up my marriage. So effed up. One more thought, coming from Hot Pinky Ratso. Find out if it's to your advantage to file in New York, New Hampshire, or Massachusetts. There could be a big difference. Act quickly though. If you're in New York, he might be able to get an order to keep you from crossing a state line with your baby. However, if I remember correctly, New York is hard on cheaters when it comes to divorce. Document everything. Record all conversations. DOP replies, yes, I'll definitely be looking into this. My mom's best friend is a Massachusetts divorce lawyer, so I'm talking with her tomorrow to see what info I can get from her about filing in Massachusetts, if it's more beneficial. I haven't spent a night in New York since early November, and I made him sign something that said he was aware that I was taking our son to New Hampshire for the indefinite future. So I have that. Didn't want to be accused of kidnapping my own child.